The basic principles around which the minimum impact ethic is built are not hard and fast rules, but guidelines aimed at helping backcountry users make ecologically sound decisions in various environments and situations. Lighting check. Oh, it's so weird. All right, y'all. Hey, hi, and welcome. This is the first Just Granola Things Club video of the month. I am super excited to talk to you today. First off, I just want to give a quick introduction because you're all new here. Someone the other day asked me if I like coffee, and I said no, I like sugar. I also like coffee, so. Got the coffee. This is gonna be rough. My name is Leah. I am an outdoor influencer on TikTok. I have almost 100,000 followers. I started my journey in probably June, and I have come pretty far since then. I just launched this club on January 1st, as you guys know because you were all there for the launch. I founded the Just Granola Things Club out of just a frustration of the lack of resources that there were for beginner hikers to meet people, to learn tips. And TikTok has been a great resource for me to provide free tips to everyone who might be curious. It's really hard to do those tips well in 60 seconds, and I find that I lose interest when I do a series, and so out of that, all of the frustrations of not being able to find hikers, not feeling like giving my information may be the safest thing for me to do, and just wanting to give you the best tips and tricks that I have learned and used. That's why I founded the Just Granola Things Club. And as a TikTok creator, I never see your actual faces, I just see your profile pictures, and so I am super excited to get to know you a little bit more through the monthly Zoom chats and just on the Facebook page. I already love seeing all of your introductions. So, all that to say, welcome to the Just Granola Things Club. This never focuses. Focus, please. This is the first monthly video of the year for the Just Granola Things Club, and I'm so excited. We are going to kick it off with Leave No Trace. I'm going to do an in-depth walkthrough of why Leave No Trace is important to do, the principles, and a little bit about how they're applied. Then, once we do the monthly Zoom call, make sure you write down all the questions you have. We will do a brief overview, and then we will hop into getting to know each other a little bit more. Just tonight. Okay, let's start by talking about why Leave No Trace is important. Leave No Trace principles were founded with nature and animals and the ecosystem in mind. One of my biggest pet peeves is going on trail and finding trash, or reading a comment from someone that says, people are ruining our parks. Yes, okay, but we're also not teaching them the Leave No Trace principles. The Leave No Trace principles, if you follow them, are there to protect and preserve nature while allowing you to go outside and love on nature and love being in nature and participate in doing activities outside in nature. Now, I will say that there are a range of how seriously people take Leave No Trace. There are the Leave No Tracers that believe getting outside in nature is not leaving no trace. So there are people on this end of the spectrum that are very, they hold tightly to the Leave No Trace principles to the extent of believing that being in nature is leaving a trace just in general. I don't swing here, but I swing pretty close to being there. And there are individuals who are over here who don't know what Leave No Trace is and who don't follow the principles, which this is the extreme no going in nature individual. Here versus here is probably more on the end of educating people, and I want each of you to not only know what the Leave No Trace principles are, know how to apply them, but also feel comfortable teaching people what the Leave No Trace principles are. We sit there and criticize people for their lack of knowledge about Leave No Trace or just criticize their behavior. They aren't really learning a lot. So when we can give the people that we see aren't doing them right feedback and education and tell them, hey, maybe that's not the way we're supposed to be treating nature. Like maybe you should pick up your trash. Like it's called pack it in, pack it out. This is the principle. We want to allow people to be out in nature as long as possible, and this is how we can keep it clean and enjoyable for everyone else. That gentle guidance puts you here where you know the principles, you know what they are, you know how to apply them, but the next step is being able to educate people about what they are. A big part of educating people about what it is just doing it really well yourself. Behavior will be a guide for how they choose to act in the woods. I want you to be in the middle. I want you to know what the principles are. I want you to know how to apply them. And I want you to feel safe getting out in nature, knowing that you are not destroying nature. So the objective for this video is for you to know why Leave No Trace is important, know what these 7 principles are, and thirdly, know how to apply them. If you are curious and would like to read more, I personally love this Leave No Trace book. It is by Annette McGivney, and I will put it in the comments of this video and link it. But it is super, super awesome and literally walks through like everything, and it begins with this really nice introduction of why lands are protected in the first place, and it talks a little bit about the evolution of land going from just this view of like, oh, it's worthless, to now being protected and being some of the most beautiful pieces of the United States that we cherish, and other countries, but this is specifically United States based. It's a great book. I read it for one of my classes and I absolutely love it. Now let's dive in to unpacking what each of these 7 Leave No Trace principles are. And just so you know, Leave No Trace is typically abbreviated as LNT. That's a hiker buzzword for y'all. The first Leave No Trace principle is to call ahead and prepare. This Leave No Trace principle might be a tad outdated given the amount of information that you can find online, so I would say you don't really need to call ahead, but definitely do your research ahead of time. This can look like understanding what the environmental concerns of the area are, such as fire bans or whether certain parts of a park are closed. There's a bacteria growing in the Zion River. And so knowing that before you travel to Zion National Park would have been a really good thing to know. Next are regulations. Are bear cans required? Do you need a certain size tent? Can you only hike in certain areas? Just knowing the regulations, especially with COVID. Right now, a lot of shuttles in national parks are shut down, so that would be something that you would definitely want to know before you kind of just went and relied on travel. Be prepared for harsh conditions like snow, wind, or rain. Definitely bring proper equipment and know how to use it. Under this Leave No Trace principle is also bringing a map and a compass and knowing how to use it. Under this principle is also carefully planning your meals to reduce food waste. And also reduce the amount of trash that you're producing by repackaging your food before you get on the trail. Another bullet point under this Leave No Trace principle is to invest in modern gear that reduces your impact on the land you're visiting, such as investing in a lightweight camp stove versus building a campfire, and using a trowel to dig your cat holes. Under this Leave No Trace principle is to avoid busy times of the year in a park, because busy times call for more people, calls for maximum impact on land. You can do this by looking at blog posts to see the busiest times of the year in certain national parks, or even using the National Park Service website to determine what busiest times of the year are. Alright, the second Leave No Trace principle is camp and travel on durable surfaces. Okay, this is probably one of my biggest pet peeves, is people not hiking on the designated trail. Trails are there for a reason, and that reason is to walk on them. A lot of these environments that have hiking trails, especially like the desert and the forest and like alpine tundra, the environments are actually really delicate. My biggest pet peeve is people just like trekking right off the trail to like go take a picture. Like, please stay on the trail. They're there for a reason. Yeah, just don't hike off the trail, please. Leave No Trace recommends that you walk single file, like center of the trail, behind each other. So if it's just you, just hike in the center of the trail. If you're with a group of people, just single file, right down the trail. You're good to go. Don't shortcut trails. This is kind of the same as the last one. Also, don't cut switchbacks. This just increases erosion, destroys delicate environments, things like that. When you're traveling cross country or in the back country, make sure that you're traveling on the most durable surface available to you. Rocks are number one. Rocks don't erode very easily. You're not trampling over like delicate baby trees or delicate environments. So rocks are top number one durable surface to travel on. 2 would be gravel, so like just tiny rocks. Dry grasses, like tall dry grasses, are great. I mean, not great, but they're better than like brand new trees or like fresh grass. And then the last option for a durable surface would be snow. When you're camping, say at a campsite that you reserved overnight, make sure you camp in like the designated spot at that campsite. Don't go camp on like the green grass just because it looks more comfortable. Like, camp at the designated site. That can reduce your impact. If there's already a worn spot in the ground where you can tell you're supposed to camp there, camp there. However, if you are in the backcountry and you have a permit to camp or just didn't need a permit to camp and you are looking for a campsite, first, look for an area that is already worn. Keep your activity concentrated in the area that is already bare for designated use. If you're in the backcountry and you don't see a lot of wear and tear where you're supposed to be camping, make sure you spread out the tents as far as you can. Typically, if you're on a trail, you're probably only staying one night, but if you're staying more than one night, make sure you move your tent each day to limit the amount of impact and compression you're putting on the ground to avoid leaving an impact. Last bullet point in this tip is to make sure that you are camping 200 feet away from the trail and 200 feet away from water, because you might be affecting delicate riparian zones. Riparian zones or areas are super important for water erosion. They reduce the amount of erosion. So if there's a stream and there's camping on one side of the stream and people are camping right up by it, that soil is going to break down and wash away in the river, making the river wider, which is causing more erosion and not leaving as minimum impact as possible. Next is probably the tip I talk about the most, which is pack it in, pack it out. Pack it in, pack it out, pack it in, pack it out. Pack it in, pack it out, homies. The actual principle is called disposing of waste properly, but it's more commonly known as pack it in, pack it out. I feel silly saying what it means because I want to assume that you guys are not, I want to assume that you guys are very smart, and I'm sure you are. Pack it in, pack it out means that every single piece of trash or food that you bring on the trail that is not directly consumed by you is packed out. This includes wrappers for anything. This includes food that you didn't end up eating. This includes, if you bring a banana, you tossing it over into some grass, because that's not leave no trace. Even though it's biodegradable, it's not good to do. Just take it home and compost if you're that worried. Burying your trash in a hole is not a good idea because one, it doesn't really biodegrade. It would take several thousand years or 100 years for it to biodegrade. And two, animals will dig it up. They're animals. They smell the food, they smell a smell, they're gonna dig it up and spread the trash all over or end up eating something that could make them sick. One of the things that I like to do is take a bag. Say I was bringing tortillas on the trail. I just take this bag and put all of my trash in here. You can carry, I have like an extra produce bag that I would carry, or you could just use a gallon-sized Ziploc, but make sure that you're not, like, you can use any bag you want. Make sure you're not leaving trash on the trail. For my menstruating viewers, this includes tampons that are used. What I did was I had a leftover bag from repackaging all of my food at the beginning of the trail that was opaque, so it wasn't see-through like one of these bags would be. And then I took all of my tampons in like one of those reusable stasher bags, unused ones. And every time I would use one, I would take it out, put it in the opaque bag, and then like insert a new one and put all of that waste in the opaque bag. I also put my used toilet paper in there. People say that they use duct tape around a bag. I think that is just kind of wasteful in my opinion. So if you have an opaque bag, say of like tortilla chips, or it's preferable if it will seal. Like I had a used dry mango bag, and so I ended up using that for some toilet paper too. I just bring a bag for food waste, anything, and put it in there. And when I was hiking the Teton Crest Trail, we had to have a bear can, and so anytime you have a bear can that is required, or a bear bag, all of your used trash needs to go in that bear bag or bear can. I just would push all the air out of it and stuff it in there. It gets quite smelly if you're out for a long time. So use the facilities that are available to you. If you see like a bathroom or a vault toilet or a trash can, like go put your trash in the trash can and then go use the restroom in the bathroom. If there are facilities near you, utilize them. When you don't see any toilets available to you, another part of disposing of your waste properly is to use the restroom properly. So when you are taking a number 2, you need to dig a cat hole with your trowel that is 6 to 8 inches deep, and we will get into this, I think it's in June or July, when we talk about periods and hiking as a menstruating person. Yes, we will talk about disposing of your waste, and I'll show you how to dig a cat hole in one of those videos. So when it's warmer outside, about 25 degrees and the ground is frozen, that would be ideal. And when you're digging a 6 to 8 inch cat hole, to make sure that is 200 feet away from camp, 200 feet away from water, and 200 feet away from the trail. That will, one, reduce your chances of being seen using the restroom. So another bathroom tip that is under disposing of your waste properly is to limit the use of toilet paper. So a really cool product that I personally don't use because I didn't really have the money when we were going on our backpacking trip, but I'm hoping to invest in, is something called a Kula Cloth, K-U-L-A cloth. I'll link one below. My friend Erin Prody has one. She loved it, and it was for wiping when you just went, number 1, when you just went pee, and it was super awesome. She ended up loving it, and it limited her toilet paper usage, which is great in general, but just great especially when you're out in the backcountry. Also, when you're going number 2, nature provides, homie. So I personally love to find those huge, really fuzzy leaves. Please make sure that they're not something poisonous. Do not get a rash on that part of your region. And if you are concerned about your ability to be able to discern whether or not that will give you a rash or not, just use toilet paper. Don't use the restroom in a river or a lake or a flowing stream of water or any sort of water. You're supposed to be 200 feet away from it. And yeah, use what nature provides you if you can. If not, use toilet paper when you're going number 2, but just make sure you pack it out in one of those opaque bags. Last bullet point under disposing of waste properly is to wash yourself and your dishes 200 feet away from camp, water, and trail. 200 feet is a standardized number. You're gonna run into that number again when you use a bear can. It's a traditional number, it's just a leave no trace number. Get it in your mind, don't forget it, 200 feet. I'm about to film a TikTok on how to estimate 200 feet and show you kind of how I do it. So when you are washing your dishes, or your body, do it 200 feet away from trail, water, and camp. When you're washing your dishes, this is super important. Stay with me here, don't lose me, okay? Ready? When you're washing your dishes, do not dump scraps. Repeat with me. When you're washing your dishes, don't dump scraps, okay? Well, I don't care if it's in a 6 to 8 inch kettle, don't do it. You need to scrape out your pot and you need to put that in your bag of trash and take it out with you. Not only does that attract animals because it's food, but it also doesn't, like, yes, it's biodegradable, but back to the banana peel. You're not just gonna chuck a banana peel out and hope it decomposes. Something's gonna find that, something's gonna eat it, something might get sick. Don't do it, because when people see that happening, it encourages them or doesn't discourage them from not doing it. So washing out your pots, dig a 6 to 8 inch cat hole, go grab some water. I like to use filtered water. Pour the water in, I scrape it out. Sometimes I use a leaf or just my hand or a sponge that I bring with me, but I rinse it out and then dump that gray water. It's called gray water, it kind of looks gray. It's just water with like the food, kind of that film that is left in the pot, and you can dump that. And when you're washing yourself, just do it away from water. If you happen to be using a soap, make sure that it is biodegradable. That is it for disposing of your waste properly. Next, we are going to talk about leaving what you find. Let's start with the basics. It is illegal to disrupt archaeological sites or historic sites. So don't go and vandalize a rock in a national park because it's illegal. And just really disrespectful of people who are wanting to come, people who take care of the park, and yeah, it's just really disrespectful, and it seriously harms the rocks or the trees or whatever you happen to be vandalizing. Is to avoid altering a campsite, whether that be driving a nail into a tree, moving the picnic table, moving a log, any of that. Don't nail a tree, just don't do that. But if you end up moving a log or moving the picnic table, just make sure you put it back where it was before you leave. Next is to make sure you're cleaning your gear, cleaning your clothes, cleaning your food pots, cleaning your tents, cleaning your tarps, everything, because a lot of times you can unknowingly introduce an invasive species. Don't take any rocks or seashells home with you. Take a photo, take that with you. Take a video, take that with you, but do not take a physical rock or a seashell or anything with you. Leave what you find. That is it for leaving what you find. Let's hop into the next leave no trace principle. Next up, we are going to talk about limiting the usage of fires and proper fire usage. Fires are so fun, and I totally get that you want to do hot dogs and marshmallows and all of that cool fun stuff, but campfires can seriously scar land, and there are amazing alternatives, and there are also alternatives to building a campfire, such as building a mound fire or a pit fire. First up, it is just better to use a stove instead of a campfire. Fires can provide a great ambiance and a great source of light in the evening, but instead you could totally use a flashlight or a headlamp. If you decide to make a fire, make sure that you are practicing leave no trace by using a fire ring. The usage of a mound fire, which is mounding up dirt, digging and building a fire in that, and then letting the fire burn to ashes and then spreading that out. And do a pan fire, which is bringing a pan and building a fire in that. If you are building a fire, make sure that you are collecting small branches and twigs off the floor of the forest that is already there. Do not pull from a tree. Do not take branches down. Use small pieces of wood. Don't pull branches even off dead trees that have already fallen. When you're leaving a site and you are deciding to use a campfire, make sure that fire is completely burnt out. and cold to the touch. You need to make sure that you pack out all of the trash that is still in the fire ring, and you need to spread the ashes away from camp, probably 200 feet away from camp. All right, second to last leave no trace principle, here we go. Respecting wildlife. You heard me. The best thing that you can do to respect wildlife is follow all of the previous leave no trace principles. That is number one to respecting wildlife. Second is observe them from a distance. A term that, I didn't coin, but I use it all the time, is keep wildlife wild. A story that I tell is when I was in the Grand Teton National Park, we were sitting on this like wooden bridge by a lake, and we were just chilling in the lake. It was so nice and refreshing and chilly, and this fox had caught a squirrel, and he was trying to get to his den, which we found out was on the other side of the wooden bridge. And so he was just making this big loop, and he came around at least 4 times. And Aaron and I, my camping buddy, were sitting there just like kind of watching it happen, just giving him his space. But this like group of 3 or 4 girls were sitting on the other side of the lake, and they were like, oh my gosh, it's so cool, like there's a fox, let's go get a picture of it. And so they're getting so close to this fox, like literally 3 or 4 feet. I said kind of under my breath, I was like, haha, keep wildlife wild. And it just made me really mad because that fox is a wild animal, and he was just trying to, he or she, I don't really know, but he or she was trying to get back to his or her den. And just the presence of people was very stressful for him, and I could see it because he was just pacing. Me and my friend ended up leaving because it just frustrated me a little bit that they were doing that. But there are tons of other stories of people not leaving wildlife alone and getting really, really hurt. Big example of this is in Yellowstone and the Grand Teton National Park. People will get way too close to elk or moose or bears even. It's probably the leading cause for bear or just elk or moose attacks is people getting way too close. So just keep your distance. When in doubt, observe from like far away. Far away. Bring binoculars. The animal is moving in response to your presence, you are way too close. The wilderness is not a zoo, so do not feed the animals. Even if they're begging for it, don't do it. This is an example of disposing of your waste properly, but don't leave food scraps. Do your best to make sure that you're picking up all of your food, and if you're preparing food, make sure you're not smearing it on picnic tables or anything like that. Store your food and your trash securely, especially overnight. Make sure that your food is kept in a safe place. A lot of designated campsites in national forests that have a lot of wildlife activity will have suggestions on the National Park Service, or that will provide a food locker to put your food in. Next is wildlife is super sensitive during their mating season or even in the winter. Mating season, they're out, they're about, they're sensitive, they're vulnerable, and especially in winter when they're hungry or just when they're coming out of hibernation, especially for bears in the spring, there's a lot of activity, so just steer clear of those really busy times and just be super aware of your surroundings. Another part of this is to your dog or cat or whatever animal you're bringing with you on a leash. Chances are if your animal, if your pet sees another animal, it will harass it and possibly get really hurt. So just make sure you are keeping a really good eye on any pet that you might bring with you. Last leave no trace principle is be considerate of visitors. Again, if you are doing all of these leave no trace principles that I've talked about previously, you are already doing such a good job. This is a little bit different. Instead of leave no trace, this is really just being considerate of others. People come to the outdoors to enjoy the peace that it brings, to explore, to enjoy the solitude of the outdoors. So a big part of this leave no trace principle is to uphold that and protect the wilderness as this resource of solitude, just to protect that and lean into that, especially in this really busy, crazy time, the pandemic and just social media world we live in. It is so rare to be connected and in tune with nature, and so a big part of this leave no trace principle is less about leaving a physical trace and more about just leaning into what nature can provide. Another part of this is minimizing noise. So this is being respectful and considerate of campers who might be sleeping, who are out there to enjoy the peace and quiet. This can include not playing music on a speaker, and if you do choose to play music on a speaker, to do it during the day and not at night when people are trying to sleep. Another aspect of this is to keep a low profile, and so you can do this by camping out of sight when possible, avoid congregating with a bunch of people. This is kind of just like, I guess, a visual trace. A piece of this can be yielding to people on the trail. Bikers yield to equestrians, bikers yield to hikers, and hikers who are traveling downhill yield to individuals traveling uphill. All right, that's it. Now you know the leave no trace principles. Whew, man. All right, now let's talk about how to apply them. So the most important way to apply each of these principles is to utilize them and learn from your mistakes. I am not expecting you to be perfect the first time you step out in the woods. Especially with Leave No Trace, it is a multifaceted set of principles. Again, like I said in the beginning, aren't designed as steadfast rules, but they're designed to be a compass that guides you while you're in the wilderness, making the best decisions for you, for the forest, for the people coming after you, and for the animals. Best way to apply Leave No Trace is to pack it in, pack it out. Everything you bring on trail with you needs to leave with you. The second is to dispose of your waste properly, digging cat holes correctly, going to the restroom correctly, making sure you're 200 feet away from camp, water, and the trail. That is going to be critical. You take two things away from this video. I would love that to be pack it in, pack it out. All the waste that you bring on the trail with you leaves with you, and disposing of your waste properly. Meaning you are using the restroom and cleaning your pots 200 feet away from camp, water in the trail, and you are digging the right-sized cat hole and just protecting land that way. Top two that I hope you take away, if you don't take anything else away from this video, I hope it's that. If you want to be a little bit more educated on the Leave No Trace principles, make sure you write down any question you might have that I might be able to answer, and I seriously suggest the book that I mentioned from the beginning of the video. It is linked below, as well as the other resources that I talked about in this video. Leave No Trace can vary based on the environment that you are hiking in. This can mean you might need a bear can, a bear bag, a food bag. You might need a tarp for certain sorts of camping. You might need to invest in a stove to prevent using a campfire. Make sure you write down any questions you might have, and we will do a brief recap on January 16th at 4 p.m. on the Zoom call. I'll see you then. Bye. Comment any questions you might have, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. If you are not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Do you listen to your content for the teats in the background? All right, bye guys.